The following video contains ideas that might be rather obvious, and if you come to that conclusion later, then I'm sorry for wasting your time. But judging by some people's behaviour, it seems that it may not be obvious to everyone, as it wasn't obvious to me when I was a bit younger. Although I knew it at an intellectual level, I think it was something for some time that I refused to acknowledge. And now I fear I have made a video that would have been a cruel awakening to my teenage self from something that may not have been doing me any harm at the time. So I'm just going to apologise in advance for that possibility, but I know if I perpetuated the illusion, I would eventually just have made a fool of myself. So I'll start with an illustration. Let's say 3 people are going to compete in a car design competition. These people are Alice, Bob, and Richard. Let's say Alice is an accountant who likes playing computer games or something like that. It's really not that important. And let's say Bob is a truck driver who likes fishing or whatever. And Richard, who is currently an unemployed farmer and has been unemployed for the past 200 years due to being involved in a Frankenstein-esque cryogenic experiment. He has recently been revived from the permafrost he was stuck in after the lightning rod he was holding was finally struck by lightning, which restarted his heart and simultaneously defrosted him. I guess that's also some unnecessary details, but the main point to be taken away from that is that Richard has never seen an automobile in his life. He has just wandered down from the mountains and they grabbed him and they stuck him in the competition. He knows the basic concept of a car, as he was told that it was a self-propelled vehicle that you can use for personal transport, but he doesn't really know much more than that. Now Alice, Bob and Richard all get placed in separate areas, walled off so they can't see one another. They're given assistants, who don't give any advice, they just follow orders, and they're also given an engine to design the car around, and any other materials they ask for. After quite some time passes, the 3 cars are allowed to emerge from the walled off design areas. This one is Alice's. This one is Bob's. And this one is Richard's. Now, do you agree more or less with the results of this little thought experiment? Even though it has a slightly unrealistic premise of a 17th century cryogenic experiment? Yes? No? Well, if you think Richard would have instead designed the greatest car ever made, because his mind is pure and uncontaminated from the modern world, you don't agree, basically. So you should watch something else maybe, no? Because the rest of this video is not going to make much sense to you. Okay, so, oh, you do agree. Okay, so moving on. All 3 cars are a reflection of the people that made them, their interests, and also the time and environment that they grew up in. This should come as no surprise. A pointless illustration, you might think. Well, things start to get a little more interesting when we start to look at things through the eyes of Richard, a man who has never seen another car in his life, and also barely knows that other cars exist. At first Richard feels betrayed and cheated, as he thought this was a competition between 3 individuals, not 2 people against one, because clearly there has been some secret collaboration between Alice and Bob. Because the design of these 2 cars look almost identical to Richard. Richard makes a quick mental list of all the design similarities. The wheels are pneumatic and rubber. The wheels are fitted under the carriage of the car. Both of them have exactly 6 glass windows. Both have little mirrors on each side of the car to look behind it. They both have a mirror mounted above the windscreen. They both have 5 seats. They both have strips of fabric to secure the people in the seats, a wheel to turn the vehicle in front of the driver's seat, a brake and a gas pedal in the footwell of the driver's seat. And that's only the evidence that Richard can see without directly looking too far into it. But then, Alice says something that now makes perfect sense to Richard. Alice claims Bob stole her ideas. Alice shows more evidence to Richard of Bob's thievery. The placement of the engine is the same, and so is the drive shaft going from the front to the rear wheels. The usage of disc brakes. There are too many similarities to count. Now Richard hates Bob. Richard put hard work into his own car design. It annoys and irritates him that Bob didn't do that hard work. Bob, of course, denies Alice's accusations, like any thief would. So Richard quickly goes to Alice's side and says that she clearly is the car design expert. He then starts up his own car and drives it into Bob's, destroying both cars. A rather dumb ending to my little story. Now, what was the point of that? Oh yes, this little story is really a parallel, although it might have a few holes in it. I have engineered it to match something that has happened recently in the online art community. But I'm not going to talk about that directly, because I want this video to age better than a news report. But I sort of am, or whatever. An artist on YouTube who has published a popular book on drawing in ink has accused another artist who recently also published a book on drawing in ink of stealing his work. Both books are aimed at beginners, and he shows examples out of both books how uncannily similar they are. They both show the same techniques, they have similar chapter names, they show the same way to hold a pen, they show the same drawing tools, they show the same ink shading techniques in a similar display. And I was almost convinced that the artist who published the recent book plagiarized, but then I realized something. I realized that I was still a bit of a Richard to this field, a man who had a good concept of how to draw with ink, and had tried it out, but still was no expert. But these two men had earned a living from drawing in ink for years. Surely it would be a great act of egotism to presume that I, someone who unfortunately had spent more time buying pens than drawing with them, would be able to come to an informed decision about what knowledge is unique to a book in such a narrow field. And as for the Alice and Bob in this real scenario, the two artists publishing books, they are two people living during the same time, absorbing the same material, consciously or subconsciously, for they both have the same interests in a very narrow field, not designing cars this time, but just drawing with ink. And two people breathing the same air will exhale some very similar gases. I know many of us, when we were growing up, were told that we were unique and special. And, tempted by our egos, I think that we inflate the amount that we are unique. Probably gives some of the creative types motivation to keep on creating, having the belief that nothing like it will ever get made unless we create it. But this is probably just a lie we tell ourselves. After all, the thoughts and ideas we are taught existed before us. The DNA in our bodies existed before we were conceived. Most likely, we are all just a subtle variation of somebody else. Years ago, I discovered the joy of inventing concepts for science fiction stories, and I thought I invented a great one, which solved many paradoxes that time travel might create when going backwards in time. It was the act of going back in time, branched off a parallel universe, leaving the original one, where you came from, intact and paradox-free. But the more ideas I consumed, the more I became aware that my idea was not actually unique. I had just not been exposed to it yet. I had just managed to assemble a solution for a problem out of commonly accessible concepts, just like everyone else before me who had done the same. Sometimes two people who have never met come up with an identical solution to a problem simultaneously. Just look up the term simultaneous invention or multiple discovery. For example, the crossbow was independently invented in China, Greece, Africa, northern Canada, and the Baltic countries. and the blast furnace was independently invented in China, Europe, and Africa. These countries didn't steal each other's ideas. They just had a similar problem, and there was only a finite amount of solutions available with the technology they had at hand. So they came up with the same thing. So when I see someone accusing someone of stealing their work, when only the concepts within the work are similar, it's not a carbon copy, I see someone subconsciously warding off some existential dilemma of their own self-worth. Because by saying that someone stole your IP, you no longer have to admit to yourself that your hard work may not be entirely unique, because you are not entirely unique. Looking back on the books again, and some of the examples given, just think, how many effective techniques for drawing with ink are there that you could put in a book aimed at beginners? Why wouldn't the chapters be similar if each book is teaching the stages of learning the same subject? And we all have the same design for hands. So how many ways are there to comfortably hold a pen? I can only think of 4, and not all of them are conducive for drawing with accuracy. In fact, if these 2 books did not have similar content, one of the writers would not seem to be the expert that he claimed to be. Or maybe you could come to the conclusion that learning artistic techniques is worthless, and there is no ideal way to make an ink drawing, because highly successful people exist with contradictory methods. Well, there we go. I have basically said what I had to say. I feel that it has been a bit jumbled, what I had to say, and how I said it, and I'm sure someone has already said it. Many people have already made a better video about this subject. People just like me. But I made one anyway. Why did I do that? I guess I'm, just like other people, a creative person. I'm not content merely just to consume things. As a creative person, I feel the need to output as well. Creative people always make stuff out of the ideas they consumed, and those ideas have to come from somewhere. I suppose the danger lies in not having enough material to work with. So don't suffocate yourself by working in a vacuum. Okay, well, I don't think I'll make another video like this. Well, I hope not. It's a bit too meaningful for my taste. I should probably stop talking now, hey? Talking too much and saying too little as usual? Okay, goodbye. Actually, no, I'm back. I decided that maybe what I said was a bit depressing, and I'm going to show you some nice parrots now that I filmed. So I've got king parrots, and I've also got the galah. Now the galah, I think, is basically known as the clown of the sky. They're quite funny parrots. And unlike the king parrots, they all look basically identical. The king parrots have what is called sexual dimorphism, I believe. So the male and females do have a different colouring scheme. But these galahs, I can't tell the difference between them. But I'm sure the galahs can. By the fact they're still a functioning species, I suppose they're very good at it. There's probably something quite similar happening among the human race as well, where in reality everyone is actually quite similar, but the human brain is quite good at ignoring similar things and only focusing on the things that are different. Sometimes I wonder if an alien race came down from above, whose brains worked in a similar fashion, but whose bodies looked completely different, would they be able to tell the difference between us? Would we all just look the same to them? Okay, now I think I'm going. Okay, goodbye. Bye. Okay, I'm going now. Okay, leaving. Okay, bye. You can stop watching now. There's no more content. Bye. Okay, I'll stop.